How's it going, my trim people? Dr. Slacking, the Slacking Doctor, back with the draft analysis for your Forest Green Snovers. That's my first time uploading a video with a new team name. We had a bit of a rebrand. Obviously, I went away for a few months, took a bit of a hiatus from playing Mons, and I wanted to mark the comeback with a rebrand and just new start, fresh start, juggling things and balancing things. So that was as much for me as anything, but we love a rebrand, right? We love playing into different teams, and I love the Snovers. So yeah, what I'm doing with this video, you can see the whole team on screen already. I have felt like this for a long time. I feel like in the Draft League community, we do draft analyses, whatever. I feel like we do them wrong. I feel like we try and turn it into a narrative where round by round, oh, I got sniped of this and I wanted that. And it's like a story, and that's great. But most of you, I think, are here for the team, right? You just want to know the team. And a lot of people just skip the end to see the team. So there's the team, and rather than trying to turn it into a story about what happened that you weren't there for, let me just tell you why these things work together as a whole and why I decided to draft this team, because I think that's how we should do draft analysis. It's probably not good for watch time and things like that, which is maybe why people don't do it, but fuck, who cares. So coming into this, basically I had back wheel. It doesn't really matter. I was penultimate pick before back wheel. There was nothing I really wanted, nothing that stood out to me. I thought Latias was bad the last time I used it, so I thought, well, let's give it another chance. And then I started looking into Snover, because I'm an idiot, and in Gen 4, Snover was NUBL, which means you could only use it in UU or above in Gen 4. And Sinnoh remakes were not confirmed at this point, but I was like, what if I only draft from DPP OU and UU? Basically, everything has to be at least as good as Snover, but only in Generation 4. And half the stuff from Generation 4 isn't released in this Pokédex because Gen 4 remakes. So it was a very stupid idea, but it was very fun. And I think I put together a usable team. So that was the concept of this squad. And then, yeah, basically start off with Lati Tyranitar. I really like Psychic Fighting Dark Cores. I've banged on about them a bunch. So Lati Titar, first two picks, just really kind of gave me that. These aren't in order, by the way. I put them in the order that I want to talk about them. But yeah, together that just kicked off my draft really, really well. And they cover each other's weaknesses really, really well in terms of like ground, fighting, blah, 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 blah. You guys know the type interactions. So just a super nice offensive pairing. Put Blaziken in there, and that's actually a really difficult kind of offensive core to handle because Tyranitar pressures your physical walls. If I end up bringing special Blaziken and you bring in your physical wall to try and check that gets blown out, then hey, Tyranitar goes crazy. Similarly, they both can pressure bulky waters. Lati and Tyranitar can pressure bulky fairies, as can Blaziken on all three sides. So there's just a bunch of synergy between that core, with Lati having the dragon type, turning it into like even better at kind of pressuring fairies and stuff, and Blaziken's fire type making it better at pressuring waters. So yeah, I just thought it would really, really work really well. Then I wanted Magnezone because I fucking love this thing. I think Magnezone is top 5 most underrated Pokemon in draft, because I'm gonna get my what's the word I'm looking for when you have like not a thesis, well, we'll call it a thesis. My thesis on Magnezone out in this video. I think Magnezone has been unfairly misrepresented in Draft League, because whenever people draft Magnezone, especially people that have never drafted Magnezone or have used it badly, they just go, Trapper. Oh, he's got himself a Trapper. Oh, he wants to trap Steel types. Well, yeah, Tyranitar and Latias, they like having Steel types trapped. Blaziken doesn't really give a shit. The rest of my team, Swampert doesn't really give a shit. Flygon doesn't really give a shit. Even Mazumaril doesn't overly care. So it wasn't really that. That isn't why I drafted it. I think you put Analytic on this thing instead of just pigeonholing it as a Trapper. Like, this isn't a Diglett. This isn't a Trapinch. It can't only do that one thing. Like, and it becomes such a good special wall breaker. I think it stabs really hard to switch in on. Unlike most electric types, it actually has something to hit most ground types with Flash Cannon. And an Analytic Flash Cannon to, you bring in your offensive Crocodile, I think I'm going to Volt Switch. You're not going to want to take that. If I click Steel Beam, Analytic Steel Beam, your Crocodile just exploded. So I think that this team was quite fairy weak with the Fire type being part fighting. I didn't like coming in on fairies. I also didn't love coming in on bulky waters with just Latias, because if they're running Ice Beam, Calm Mind Ice Beam, things like that, it could be difficult. So this gave me something to just help me handle bulky waters. We face a Suicune in week 1, for example. It helps with that. And it also helps me deal with those fairy types, and its Dual Stab just hits so hard. And I'm hoping that I've drafted this thing off the channel, and I'm hoping I can kind of bring it to the channel, bring it to the fore, and kind of make my statement that I think this Pokemon is super undervalued in Draft League, and people just do not get the most out of it because they mislabel it. Then Skarmory, this was actually my final pick, not that it matters. I was able to pick this up right at the end because I didn't need to spend all my points. I was picking from DPP. There weren't a lot of options, right? So I picked up Skarmory late on. Again, just helps me deal with fairy types. If for some reason a fairy type has ground coverage or whatever, now Magnezone and Skarmory, they just can't be hit by the same moves. Doubling up on steel types, especially when they only share one weakness in fire, it really isn't a bad thing at all. It gives me a bunch of hazard stacks to support the offense. And now you can kind of see that Dragon Steel Fairy core, we'll get to Fairy eventually, but starting to take shape with double Steel in there to support Lati, which maybe isn't the best Dragon, so I think having double Steel kind of helps it with that a little bit. So I thought that was really, really good, but mainly just here for hazard pressure and the typing, to be perfectly honest. Very expensive. Very expensive. I would have preferred to pay like 120 for Skarmory, but there we go. Next up, Swampert, my favorite Pokemon of all time. Now, Swampert, Skarmory, kind of like a ADV, like Gen 3 staple, right? Very, very hard to handle together because you want to hit powerful grass moves into my Swampert. I have like one of the best grass checks in the game in Skarmory, so that synergy there on that defensive core I thought was awesome. But Swampert doesn't need Skarmory to come on this team because of Blaziken, because of Latias, and because of Magnezone that also handle grass types. So I just thought that Swampert was really, really nice here. Like I said, it's my favorite Pokemon of all time. I've always wanted to use it. This gave me an excuse to do it because it was supported so well by the team. Another hazard setter was really, really nice. And with Flip Turn, I think actually when you look at this team again, if I Flip Turn out on your bulky water, or I Flip Turn out on your bulky grass, or I Flip Turn out on your bulky flying, I can bring in Magnezone on the grass to flying, Blaziken on the grass, etc, etc. You get the point. And so actually just as a pivot to bring in my offensive powerhouses, this does a really good job of, and this is something people do not talk about enough with momentum. When you have momentum, you want to Flip Turn out or U-turn or Volt Switch on the correct things. And people do not think about that when they put a draft together. So what they'll say is, you know, I've got 6 momentum mons on this team. It's like, great. And so your first momentum mon is, I don't know, Taunty. Right, what does Taunty U-turn out on? Electric types, steel types, and rock types. So you probably want a really good fighting type with that. What's your fighting type? Well, I have a Scrafty. Yep, Scrafty is good, but it isn't going to wall break. So you U-turn from your powerful Tornadus into your quite weak Scrafty. Like that isn't synergy. That isn't how a draft should function and a team needs to function. Obviously, there are more options to that. It's more nuanced than that. But that's why I like Swampert so much in this team. Between Magnezone and Swampert with Teleport / Volt Switch and Flip Turn, they pair together really nicely. Blaziken with U-turn, and even Latias with Baton Pass, I'm pretty sure. All just actually bring in the right things for each other, for the breakers on my team. You want your pivots to bring your breakers in, not to bring in your walls, or not to bring in, you know, maybe hazard setters, something to bring in Skarmory wouldn't hurt. So, I don't know, Magnezone teleporting out on a fat ground type, on a Hippowdon. Great, now I'm in with my Skarmory, and I'm setting up Stealth Rocks, I'm setting up Spikes. There are different ways to pressure, but you need to maintain pressure is the point. Next up, a Abomasnow. I left at 200 points. I wish that was deliberate for the memes. It wasn't. It was a lot cheaper than that. Yeah, I picked it up partially for the memes. Like, once I realized I was doing DPP, I was like, fuck it, let me get a Abomasnow, right? Big Snova, big Forest Green Snovas. Let me get this boy. But actually, it is pretty good here. Again, another thing that can come in on grass types for Swampert and then pressure them out with his Ice Stab. Pretty good Skull Switching if you're running Special, which is nice because it takes some pressure off Latias and off Magnezone, which at the minute are really my main 2 Skull Switchings, and Magnezone doesn't even resist it, so really helps with that. Double Weather, again, and maybe I should have addressed this with Tyranitar. People will look at this and they'll go, you've drafted Tyranitar and you haven't got a Sand Team. Yeah, because if you draft a Sand Team, you shouldn't draft Tyranitar. If you draft a Sand Team, draft Gigalith or Hippowdon. Tyranitar isn't a good Sand Setter. But what it is really good is on offense, because when you pair it with things like Blaziken and Magnezone, and you hit a Analytic Flash Cannon, you hit a Banded Close Combat, and then they don't get leftovers because they're taking Sand Chip, and you don't give a fuck about leftovers because you're a Blaziken. Like, you don't care. You're not around for a long time. You're just here for a good time, right? You're just blowing through them. You don't care. So Sand is really, really useful for that. Hail as well. Obviously, some Hail immunities would have been nice, but fuck it. It doesn't matter. When I bring a Abomasnow, I'll either bring it without Hail or I'll bring it on an offense team where I care more about getting them chipped down than me getting chipped down. So, yeah, I just think it fits the team really, really nicely. Flygon then partners with it really well, in my opinion, because, again, going back to the idea of bringing in the right things, Flygon likes to click Earthquake, right? It wants to click Earthquake primarily. Yes, it wants to click Outrage and stuff, but mainly it wants to click Earthquake when it's on the offense. Fairy types are rampant in the Draft League format, etc., etc. So if I U-turn instead of clicking Earthquake, as you go into, well, what are ground resists? Bug, Flying, and Grass. Bug isn't a common defensive typing in Draft, so Flying and Grass Right, now I'm just U-turning straight into my Abomasnow, and I'm clicking a big fat blizzard, and something's getting frozen, because we all know how lucky I am. I'm freezing everything on your team. Again, just that kind of synergy to bring it in. It also helps me double up with Swampert on ground types, because so many ground types, when they lost Hidden Power, just got Grass Knot and got grass coverage, which sucks balls. But there we go, apart from Jolteon, which also sucks balls. So this way I was just able to kind of mitigate that, and I'm not just going to instantly get blown out by, I don't know, like a Thundy that just is running Grass Knot, right? I probably still will lose to Thundy with Flygon, but at least I'll be able to come in on it and not instantly fear getting a one-turn predict with Grass Knot instant death. So then Azumarill, now we're onto the Fairy type. So I kind of have double Dragon, double Steel, and then one Fairy. This is not the right Fairy for this team. Let's kick off by saying that, right? Double Water, it doesn't do a ton here. It's an Azumarill, it's never bad. It has a great typing, it has great setup options, it has priority, it has knockoff, it has Sap Sipper, Whirlpool, Perish Song, all that stuff. It's never a bad Pokemon. Is it the right pick for this draft? No. Were there only 3 fairies in DPP UU or above? Togekiss, Clefable, and Azumarill? Yes. Were the other 2 taken really early? Yes. Was this the only fairy I could get for my draft? Yes. So I got it. Because, much as I have double Steel, I don't want to switch in on a Specs Draco Meteor from a Kyurem with Magnezone or Skarmory, really. Neither of them like taking special hits that much. Yeah, just didn't seem good. Didn't seem good. So I picked up Azumarill. We played a Latios week 1, for example. All that thing would have needed is Draco Meteor, T-Bolt, Earthquake, and I just lost. So now I have an Azumarill, and I don't just lose. T-Bolt is still chunk, but, you know, it'll take it better than some things would. So yeah, just really there to stop Draco spam and Dragon spam and Outrage spam. But it does give me another setup option. I don't have things that bring it in very well. I guess Magnezone can bring in ground types and it can break on the ground types. Woo-ish. Yeah, this one, Blaziken, not really. Yeah, I don't have the best pivots into it, but fuck it. You know, you gotta get your fairy, haven't you? Last up, Dusknoir and Kangaskhan. I put these 2 at the end because they really just would pick together. I was thinking a lot about getting a poison, but the only good poison I could get was Weezing, which isn't really a grounded poison a lot of the time, and so it doesn't soak up T-Spikes anyway, and that's really what you want a poison for if you're shoehorning a poison into your draft. Otherwise, why did I want a poison when I have double Steel? Because I wanted to resist fighting. Well, Ghost does that better, so let's just take a Ghost, right? Or the other option was Haunter, but again, not a grounded poison. So with all that in mind, I just thought, well, rather than trying to get Weezing, which was more, and then like a crappy normal type, let me just take my good fighting, resist, or immunity in Dusknoir. With Poltergeist, I think this thing's genuinely good. Trick Room option as well looks pretty nice on this team with things like Abomasnow, right? So, and Azumarill even. So, yeah, I thought it was just, again, we're into the last 2 picks here. They're going to come to 3 matches at most, probably. But I thought it was useful, and it isn't weak. And I've used Dusclops recently off screen, and it's fantastic. So Dusknoir, in theory, could be even better. And then last up, Kangaskhan, just because by adding Dusclops, I felt a little bit Ghost weak, given my only resistance was Tyranitar. If your Gengar, for example, not that I got drafted, but if your Gengar, for example, landed a Focus Blast, or your Aegislash clicks Close Combat, well, I don't have a Ghost Resist anymore, and that's pretty bad. Kangaskhan at least will be able to tank those hits from, especially from like a Gengar, Spadef Kangaskhan will eat. So, yeah, it just helps support Tyranitar, not be too pressured by offensive Ghosts, although it's not fantastic. Priority's really good, Scrappy's really good. Yeah, Fake Out, Sucker Punch, all that shit. So, Wish and Cleric, I think, as well, but I don't really play like that, so it's going to be more offensive than defensive every week. So yeah, this is the team. I took way longer on that than I expected to, because I had to A, argue in defense of Magnezone. Defense, that's the word I was looking for. And B, I had to explain why I was doing my draft analysis like this. But that's the team. Let me know what you think. I think it's pretty fire, considering how heavily restricted I was, considering that I had spent 140 points on Azumarill and 160 on Skarmory, that, you know, Skarmory was essential, but I feel like it could have been cheaper. And Azumarill, just because I needed a fairy. Like, we were pretty hamstrung with what we could do here by my own meme. But I think this is a good team. Like, I genuinely, again, I'm going to keep rambling because I don't give a fuck. Basically, like, I said this to someone the other day. I said this to Aquarius the other day. I think what people need to understand is that if you do something like this, and if you are getting tired of Draft League jaded, whatever, like, try doing something like this. Because I think if you genuinely understand team composition and draft composition, you can draft a good team with any limitations. A good player who spends all of their points in a draft will never have a unviable team. And this team is definitely not viable, right? I'm not saying it's title winning, but I can make playoffs with this team. Probably won't, but I could if I played well enough. It's not that bad. It's not a meme. It's just a meme. You know what I mean. Thank you so much for flipping around with me, and I'll catch you again next time.